running to Badlands. Explain those Badlands. That's a hell of a name.
I don't consider myself a conspiracy buff at all, but when they get a lot of coincidences, I get a little suspicious and call me crazy.
Polls, weird talk shows, crazy groups every Sunday telling you what you think.
The Republicans and the Democrats conspire with one another, which they do.
There is a conspiracy by big business against American democracy.
We know that there was a conspiracy.
There was a conspiracy.
There was no conspiracy.
Was there a conspiracy?
A communist conspiracy directed out of Moscow.
The right-wing conspiracy.
Communist conspiracy is a deliberate and predictable plan of action to subvert the world.
Right-wing conspiracy.
International criminal conspiracy.
Vast right-wing conspiracy.
Great conspiracy.
And all these conspiracy theories.
Was there a conspiracy? I don't know.
Perhaps themselves even involved in the conspiracy.
There was a conspiracy.
No evidence
of a conspiracy.
Anybody would have to be a fool nowadays to dismiss conspiracies.
Conspiracy theory.
Cockeyed conspiracy theory.
Conspiracy theory exists because there really is conspiracy.
But they never told a soul about it. In fact, they engaged in a vast conspiracy.
You get accused of being a conspiracy theorist, of being a paranoid.
The historical context of actual conspiracy.
A conspiracy of bad people.
As always happens at some point in a conspiracy. One night, Cousin Eddie got drunk in a honky-tonk and spilled the beans.
There was a conspiracy, and government was involved in it.
Conspiracy existing within the United States government.
There was a conspiracy.
A
conspiracy by the CIA.
The conspiracy of a few.
Dark, secretive, conspiratorial, evil.
Then it was certainly a deliberate conspiracy.
High-level conspiracy.
The do's and the don'ts and the rights and the wrongs of the various conspiracy theories that are good.
Possibility of a conspiracy. In a moral sense, I think it was a conspiracy.
One conspiracy, that's all I'm talking about.
Full of speculation, conspiracy theories, and the like. And what's going on here?
You began to wonder what was really happening in America. I mean, was there a vast conspiracy afoot?
You know, there could have been a conspiracy.
Do you think you're obsessed with conspiracy?
Conspiracy theory.
A conspiracy.
I'm afraid you'll catch me. I'm afraid you'll catch me.
A conspiracy would do the job nicely.
Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to another episode of your favorite Monday night show, Baseless Conspiracies. As always, I am joined by Zak Paine. Zak, how you doing, man? I heard not great.
Yeah, I've been better. I am dealing with back issues right now. I threw my back out over the weekend. Like literally moved my leg in the wrong direction, and it was all it took for everything to fall apart. So literally all day Sunday, I couldn't do anything. You had asked me to play video games, and I was like, yeah, I'm busy. I just didn't want to get into it. I was like, I'm dying. To get out of bed, it was horrible. And anyways, I got a back brace delivered today, and I went to the chiropractor, and the back brace honestly makes it feel a lot better, but it's still not good. I feel totally incapacitated. It sucks.
I'm sorry, man. Well,
Yeah.
Does it make it suck that much more, knowing that it was basically old age that caused you to throw your back out, not physical activity?
No. I mean, physical activity may have had something to do with it. The chiropractor was like, are you doing anything different nowadays? I was like, well, I just started doing calisthenics and squats. And she was like, yeah, that probably did it. She was like, are you stretching? And I'm like, no. She was like, you probably want to start stretching before you just start working out. But anyways, yeah. But old age definitely has something to do with it. We'll say middle age.
I was just giving you crap. I've been trying to do the squats now too. Yeah. But since January 1st, and I've only been doing 50, but I have been adding weight. Squats, push-ups, and pull-ups. You have inspired me. You get full credit for
glad to hear it
this summer. So thank you for that.
Cool.
Yeah, but now you're taking a break because you're back, and so
yeah, hopefully for only a few days. But I got another chiropractic appointment on Friday, so I'm just going to start going once a week.
That's probably smart.
Yeah,
man. We're gonna get into the Montauk conspiracy, continue final chapter, we think, right?
Yeah, this will be the final chapter. Yeah, and we're also going to talk at length about the Philadelphia experiment. I'll do a little kind of a recap of the primary information, and then we'll talk about a couple of the players.
Before we do that, We should talk about the Venezuela stuff. I didn't get a chance to watch you and Brian this morning. That was this morning, right?
That was this morning, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't get a chance to watch you guys, so I didn't hear your take on it yet. And I'm just curious.
I think Brian and I both are largely of the opinion that this was an extraction. Neither of us would consider it a regime change because, I mean, we grew up during the formative years of regime change for the United States. I see a regime change as an indiscriminate series of bombings on both civilian and military and government targets, which completely incapacitate the existing government, decapitating it, if you will, not so much just plucking a single person out and then exerting geopolitical pressure on whomever remains, because that's really what I see happening in Venezuela.
Is like, I'm confused because regime change, like, I feel like there's a definition to it. I don't feel like it's a subjective thing.
Well, it's not just the changeover. A regime change would be like the entire decapitation of the ruling government. And that's not happening. Okay. You've got one person who's being removed and he's
the dictator.
Well, I mean, that's subjective. Okay. There are some interesting things. Let me tell you a couple of things about Nicolás Maduro, John. Do you know what Nicolás Maduro was doing before he got elected to the state assembly? Like they're basically their version of Congress.
Was he a lotion salesman?
No, he was a bus driver. Okay. And he was uneducated. He was a blue collar schlub, just moving place to place, making a living. And he met his wife, who was arrested with him over the weekend.
It's a real love story when you think about it.
It is a love story. It's
a Hallmark movie.
It's tender, and it'll probably sound familiar to some of you. So they met. He was a bus driver. He was uneducated. She was very educated. She was one of the top lawyers in the country at the time. And she was a longtime personal confidant of Hugo Chavez. Now, she was the lawyer. She was Hugo Chavez's attorney. And at that time, Chavez was in prison for a failed coup attempt. And she was instrumental in getting Chavez out of prison. She meets Maduro. They fall head over heels in love. She's married with 3 kids. He's got a son. And she sort of plucks him out of obscurity. Now, it was her that had the proximity to power. She was at Chavez's side through his sort of political ascendancy. And then when he was, elected or whatever, she was there right with him. Now, I don't know if perhaps the reason that she wasn't what Maduro was is because she's a woman. I'm not certain about what the politics are in terms of gender and ruling class, but she and Maduro both get elected to the state assembly. And he arguably only was in that position because of his relationship to her. She was the stronger personality of the two. And it was his relationship with her that got him close to Chavez. And Chavez chose him very quickly to be his successor, knowing that he had no experience, that he was just, a bus driver, and that, he was marrying this woman that had gotten him out of prison. So that's how Maduro came to power. He had a very quick rise from bus driver to the assembly to being the ruler. And I think there's an argument to be made that she was the real power in the relationship. And perhaps the things that he is being blamed for and that have all been attributed to him were her. Another interesting thing, I mean, you just take a look at the way that he's behaving after his arrest. Yeah. And he doesn't seem like a man who's all that concerned about life in prison or the potential death penalty. He also doesn't seem to have fought when he was arrested by Delta Force. But today in court, it was reported that looks like somebody hit her in the head with the butt of a gun and might have broken a couple of her ribs. She was the one who was fighting. And so, it would not surprise me if she was this sort of manipulative, power hungry harpy who really wanted to rule and was using him. And, and then there's also the argument to be made that, even if this was the arrangement between them in terms of power, you have all of these other ruling factions within the country, like the military itself. You've got Cuban intelligence that were down there. They were the ones that were guarding him, but they also essentially came in and they were training all of the state intel assets. And there was a close economic relationship between Cuba and Venezuela because of all the sanctions on Cuba. And so Cuba really relied on this relationship. And then you've got the top tier generals that were the ones that were truly running the Cartel de Sols. Cartel de Sols started when Maduro was a bus driver. Okay. I mean, like, he didn't start this cartel. I mean, it was already there when he came into power. And he wasn't even really the one that was running it. It were these other people who were holding power in the military. I think that Maduro was basically a figurehead. And I think that it's also another big signal that he told the Biden administration how all of these people had been set free from the Tren de Aragua gang members had been set free and allowed to come into his country. He tried to tell them, he tried to make a deal back then, but they wouldn't do it. I mean, he's always maintained that he wasn't the one running the cartel. He also, pretty much blew the whistle on the fact that, the real cartel is in the United States of America. I don't think that that's incorrect at all. I mean, George H.W. Bush and BCCI, we've talked about that here on Baseless Conspiracies. I mean, BCCI was the CIA's private banking cartel, and they did business with cartels, with intel agencies, with terrorist organizations. So I think that I think that it's a far more complicated issue than Maduro bad, United States good. I believe we are the good guys right now, but the ultimate issue that we are dealing with in Venezuela is a problem that was years in the making and can be attributed directly to the Central Intelligence Agency and our meddling in South American countries.
Yeah, so that was a lot. It didn't answer my question, but I agree with everything you said. We've been talking on Badlands for like 6 months now about how it's probably going to be the Assad template. Like, this is more than likely a negotiated exit. We can't prove it. It's still speculation, but there's a lot of things that map onto that. But no matter how you skin this cat, Zach, it's technically a regime change. I want us all on the same page with at least the definition of that. This is his wife, by the way, his handler.
Yeah. His handler, yes, it's his handler. Now, let me just, I'm just going to look up regime change.
Yeah.
Definition. Okay. The replacement of one administration or government by another, especially by means of military force. So I still disagree with the characterization of a regime change, because the only person who was taken away was Maduro and his harpy wife.
What kind of government are we told that they have there?
Well, it's supposed to be a socialist government. However, the government that is in power now is under a very particular type of political pressure from the United States of America.
Sure.
To
bend the knee.
To bend the knee, yes. And to do essentially what we would like them to do, which is to join the global order.
So regime.
The Trump world order. I wouldn't say regime change, because there was no war. There was no invasion.
There's a military operation.
Yeah, there was a military operation.
Invasion.
Would you consider the Ukraine-Russia thing a war? Because that's a specialized military operation. Putin's been saying it since the beginning.
That's a war. Yeah.
You really think it's a war?
I mean, we're told it's a war. Okay.
Well,
we're told it's a war. I don't know what's actually going on there, just like nobody else does.
So no, of course. I mean, I've seen certain things, okay, from people who live in the region, that I trust. However, Putin and the Russians call it a specialized military operation. If they wanted a full-scale war, they could have blown Kiev to high heaven. They could have already taken Zelensky, and they may now that the United States has set the standard with going into Venezuela and capturing Maduro. I think it was Viktor Orban. He said today that the ramifications of this action will be felt throughout the entire world. There are distinct realities that may have just changed on the world stage. Now, if the deep state is going to start just walking in and just stealing people like they did previously, obviously, that's going to be something that I think that the United States would have something to say about. But can I just add one more thing?
Go for it, man.
The other reason I mentioned BCCI for a reason earlier. You know, the other really interesting aspect of this this extraction is that it happened on January 3rd, which is like the anniversary of Noriega getting wrapped up by the H.W. Bush administration.
Oh.
And he was definitely working for the Central Intelligence Agency and George H.W. Bush. And BCCI was involved with the funneling of all of that drug money. I think that Noriega got too big for his britches. They went in there and they took him out and they disappeared him. But I don't think that it's a coincidence that we went in and did this now. And President Trump is going ham with election fraud stuff. You've got the Venezuelan election fraud narrative over here, which I think is a simplification of that kind of hand waves certain bad actors that do have an involvement in it. So I think all of this is connected, and I think that Maduro is going to play a big part going forward, but I just don't see it as a regime change. But that is just me.
I don't get why everybody's so afraid of regime change. Like, I don't get why everybody's so afraid. If Biden did this exact same thing, we would call it a regime change. And I bet you half a mega, maybe more, probably even Trump himself would be like, what are we doing regime change in other countries?
Well, they may.
Because it's Trump, everybody's like, oh, well, Samantha, technically it's not a regime change. I don't have that opinion. Like, you guys, it's fucking regime change. Like, why is everybody so afraid of saying that?
Because I grew up watching the United States engage in regime change in other countries. And it was a violent, bloody, and destabilizing effort. I think that Venezuela is going to be stabilized very quickly. I think that it will have a completely different feel and effect. And we didn't fly over Venezuela and bomb a whole bunch of targets and, take out a bunch of infrastructure.
The military was used,
regime change, Iraq regime change, Libya regime change.
Zach, the military was used to change what we were told was the political dynamics of another country. Like, how else would you define that? And why is it like, why I don't get why everybody's playing semantics. Like, I'm being serious. Why isn't, like, I feel like I'm on retard pills right now.
No, it's because the circumstances of this event are wholly different from 100% regime changes that I've witnessed in the past. And I'm not saying that I'm only saying this because it's Trump. All right. I think that regime change carries along with it a whole host of connotations that are far more destabilizing than what we are seeing.
Well, let's explain that, because I think that's why everybody's afraid to say, why does it matter if people call it a regime change? Regime change doesn't have to be a negative thing.
No, it doesn't. But again, I see a regime change as a complete and utter dismantling of the entire government with the removal of all top people. Like when we went and did a regime change in Iraq, we got rid of the entire government. We disbanded the Ba'ath Party. We fired the entire military. We took all of those guys who had stuff to do and we just sent them out into the ether. Plenty of them became terrorists and started fighting against us. A lot of other people who had been in power were no longer in power, and they were basically torn apart by the rest of the population. And it was just a very bloody and destabilizing effort. Let's tell you what, if it becomes a quagmire over there, and we'll probably learn pretty quickly, I will totally admit that I should have agreed with you that it was a regime change. But I just think that there are other factors that have to be in play.
I don't even care that you don't agree it's a regime change. What I think is interesting here is I think I found something that is like what the mega movement does when it comes to Trump. Is they're afraid, like this whole thing where people are afraid to criticize Trump, otherwise like we're going to lose the midterms and all that stuff. We found what I think is a pretty good example of it here. And you're being nice about it to me, which is I appreciate. Other people are like so adamant. It's like, guys, it doesn't matter if it's a regime change. Like, that's what it is. You can call it that. It literally doesn't matter. I even don't think that's what's actually is going on. I think like
you just want me to admit that it's a regime change.
No, like what I actually believe is going on is some sort of negotiated exit. Like Maduro and Trump work together. This is more like, hey, we're going to get you out of harm's way so we can do what we need to do.
Exactly.
Whatever.
Yeah.
But that's not what we're told is being going on. What we're told is being going on is a fucking regime change. And it's a badass one too, because nobody else could pull it off. Like, it was fucking sweet. It's still a regime change.
I do think it's surgical, But again, I don't see it as a regime change, because the regime changes that I saw were bloody and destabilizing, and they were totally bad for everyone.
Did you see Maduro's wife's face?
No, I didn't see it. It was reported. You know, there's like a couple of frames where you can see her getting off of the airplane. I'll tell you what, Maduro gets out of the helicopter, and he's like Hillary Clinton at that fucking fundraiser. He's like, wow. He's looking around and he's smiling. His wife is like bent over. They've got her by the back of the head and they're being rough with her and stuff. It was nuts. But yeah, I mean, here's the thing. I have no problem criticizing Trump when there are things that, you know, I don't agree with, you know, but even those things criticize one thing. Well, okay, I'll go back to the first administration. There were plenty of people that I was like, I really wish he would have fired that person, you know. But in terms of his second administration, I think that everything has been swimming. I think it's been fantastic.
I know you feel that way.
Yeah,
we don't even go down this rabbit hole because the audience will hate me, and they already do hate me. They will hate me irredeemably if we do that.
I mean, like PJ says, Zach can't do it. I literally don't have anything that I disagree with Trump in this administration, in the second administration.
That's just wild.
Yeah, I mean, I literally can't think of a single thing.
You approve of sending $800 million to Ukraine?
Well, no, that's Congress.
Trump signed it.
Well, Trump did sign it, but they also attach it to a whole bunch of other shit. I have a problem with the way that our government functions. And that's not the president's fault. All right. I mean, like, it's a pre-existing situation that he comes into. Okay. If President Trump wanted to set some type of an example, and okay, I will agree with you on this one, because he could say, I am not going to sign anything that isn't a single issue bill. I wish that he would do that, because if he was to do that, then it would force Congress to act on that principle that they've already told us they were going to give us. The problem is Congress. I don't think the problem is Trump. So I disagree with him on not using his power in that way. I wish that he would.
Okay. So you're disappointed.
I wouldn't say no, I'm not disappointed.
I'm just kidding.
You're funny. You're funny.
I'm just kidding. Okay. Well, the chat is all hot and bothered. No, I do not hate Trump. You guys are retarded. I love seeing how pissed off everybody gets. I really don't care what any of you guys think, though. But you're all wrong, and I'm right. Zach, why don't we get into the Montauk conspiracy?
Oh, God.
Got everybody all hot and bothered.
All right. So I just want to give you guys a quick rundown of what we went through last week. Preston Nichols, okay? Preston Nichols was a scientist. In 1971, he started working at this company called Airborne Instruments Laboratory. I've also got a short video clip interview with Preston Nichols from the early 90s we're going to watch in just a second. But he was an electrical engineer. He came to work at AIL because he had a specialization in electromagnetic phenomenon, and he was doing some sort of like, you know, off the book stuff in his own time with like paranormal stuff. So he came to this lab to he got a grant to work on telepathy. He was doing like studies on telepathy. He had some theories on electromagnetic phenomena and how that was connected to telepathy. So he actually didn't believe in it, and he thought that in doing this study he was going to disprove its existence. But the more work that he did, the more studies that he attempted to do to disprove it, he failed to do so, and he ended up coming away a believer. And he started working in this research with a handful of psychics, and he was doing testing on their abilities, recording the results, and then he started to just become a big believer in this stuff. This was 1971. So in 1974, while he's working, he discovers that at the same time every day for about 20 minutes, he's got all of these psychics working together in the lab, and at the exact same time, all of them would have like a mind block. Basically, it was like they were being jammed or something like that. And they wouldn't be able to do the experiments, but not only that, but they wouldn't be able to like think effectively. It was like for that 20-minute period, they were completely blocked on anything they attempted to do. So Nichols gets a theory that, it must be some type of electrical interference, because that was the direction that he was going with his research. So he uses some radio equipment that he had, and he tries to trace the signal, and he ends up tracking it back to the radar antenna that was conspicuously placed at Camp Hero. So he goes to the base, he tries to investigate, security will not let him on site, and he's basically just kind of forced to, just like assume that this is it, but he doesn't really know. He doesn't know why, he doesn't know what's going on there. So about 10 years pass, and in 1984, he learns that Camp Hero has been abandoned. So he goes in there with a friend of his, somebody who was in these psychic experiments with him, and they sneak into the base. And if you'll remember, when he got there, although the base was empty, like there was just a whole bunch of stuff that was still left there. It was like they just abandoned the base, and they left all of this paperwork and furniture and equipment and stuff like that.
Like left in a hurry?
Yes, exactly. Like they left in a hurry. So while they're there, they come across this homeless guy. This homeless guy is like, I've been living here since they abandoned the base. And I guess they abandoned the base in 1983. So he goes on to tell them that there was a huge experiment that was being conducted at the base. Things went bad. And when things went bad, this is when the military decided, like, we just need to abandon the base. Preston and Brian, which was the name of the guy that was there with him, they're like, I think this guy's blowing smoke up our ass. This doesn't make any sense. Why would they just abandon this base? But then this guy tells them, well, I can prove it to you. He was like, I was a technician. I was working here on this base. And guess what? You, Preston Nichols, were my boss. You worked here with me. And you were one of those people that fled with all of these other scientists. And the reason you all fled is because the experiment that you were working on opened up a doorway, and a horrific, man-killing, bloodthirsty beast appeared on the base, and it started killing people. So they ended up freaking out and leaving. And he ends up going on to describe like all of these different experiments and studies that were being done at the base, things that were like mind control related to psionic experiments, like what Preston had been doing in his available memory, like all the way up to like weather manipulation, and obviously tons of stuff with like radio frequencies with the antenna at Camp Hero. So once
he believed all this?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know his exact state of mind. I think that probably at the start, he likely did not buy into it. But he was like, now I have access to this base. I can go ahead and check it out, and I can see what's going on. So they start going through things. They start looking through some of this paperwork and some of the debris. And, oh, thank you, honey. And what's up, hon? Okay. And anyways, while he's there and he's talking to this guy, he eventually starts to have these recovered memories. He was like, what are the chances that I don't remember my own life, right? I mean, what are the chances that I was here and I was working at this base and I worked with this guy. I was his boss for however many years, and I don't have any memory of it. That's absolutely insane. Doesn't make any sense. I don't know. I think that maybe, the fact that he did these experiments on mind control with psychics, in his work that he had, specifically remembered, that may have led him to get to the point where he could sort of start to crack the egg on it. But he ends up leaving the base with Brian. They leave this homeless guy. They go back to his personal lab. And while they're there, another strange event happens. This guy barges in. He also claims to have known Preston Nichols. And he is talking to him about all of the things that he saw. It was a lot like the homeless man. He had a similar story. And he also tells him about some of the strange things that he saw when he was working at the base.
Hold on.
Go ahead.
This is another homeless person?
No, this guy is not homeless. This is just a different guy who also claims to have worked with Preston on the base. He doesn't say anything about knowing this homeless guy, but he starts talking about the situation on base very similarly to how the homeless guy was talking about it. He goes into a little bit more detail. He talks about some of the experiments that they had. He said,
what did this guy do for work before we get into that?
Well,
because
this is okay. Well, okay.
my question, like, let me explain. The first guy being homeless, like they worked at this super secret military base. You probably had to have some sort of professional background or some expertise to even have access there. So how only 10 years later was this guy homeless on the streets?
Well, this is only 1 year after the base had closed. So I don't know what happened. Yeah, it's even worse. So I don't know what happened in that year. And as far as I know, he and Preston Nichols never ran into each other again. Now, this other guy, I don't know that Preston ever got his name. He just like shows up at his house and he's telling him, oh my God, I was there. We worked in these experiments there. We made it snow in August. We made hurricane force winds. We had, I guess he was working on weather experiments or something like that. But you might remember last week that one of the things that clued Preston into that this might be some type of electrical disturbance is that during that 20-minute period when people would be, when the psychics would be totally mind blocked, animals in town would also start to behave strangely. Now, this aspect of the story is something that other residents of Montauk have publicly talked about before, that there was a point during the day when animals would behave unnaturally. They would like wander into town at the same time, or like birds would go crashing into windows. Maybe a deer would jump through a plate glass window or something like that. But Preston Nichols, after these two strange interactions that he had with these guys, he goes and talks to the chief of police in Montauk, and he's asking him about these strange events that both of these dudes were explaining to him. So the chief of the police like listens to him, and then he confirms at least some of them, that there was definitely this like period during the day when weird things tended to happen in the town. And there was also another strange thing that he came to report, which was that during this same time, teenagers would supposedly in town get together into big groups, and then after 2 hours, they would suddenly go their own separate ways. I don't know if the insinuation there is that these kids were somehow affected by some like mind control experiment, or they were young maybe and their brains were open, and so whatever it was that was affecting the animals was affecting them in the same way. But Preston Nichols also ends up running into yet another strange individual. We talked about him a little bit more last week. This is in November of 1984. The guy's name is Duncan Cameron. So this guy, Duncan Cameron, shows up at Preston's lab while he's there working, and he comes into the lab and he's got this piece of radio equipment, some strange piece of radio equipment. I don't have a picture of it. I've never seen a drawing. I don't know exactly what it looks like, only that it was unusual. And it was unusual to Preston because he was a radio guy. Like, this was like one of his hobbies. I've seen a number of interviews with Preston where he is like sitting in front of like a bank of like radio equipment, like tubes and like knobs and stuff like that. So he and Duncan Cameron are talking. Duncan is showing him this radio equipment, and Duncan then tells him that he is a psychic. And Preston tells him about the study that he was working on over the last decade. And then Duncan is like, oh my gosh, I'm a psychic. I should get involved in this experiment. So
were there drugs involved?
There were no drugs involved. No drugs involved. So they start working together. Preston is, I guess, doing experiments with him, having him exhibit his talents, and it's like going so well. And then Preston starts thinking about it. And he's like, this is odd, right? Like first I run into this random homeless guy. He tells me I used to work at this base. As far as I know, I've never been there. Now it's deserted. And then some other dude shows up at my house. And now a third guy just shows up at my house, and he just happens to be like the perfect subject from one of my experiments. He gets really suspicious about it. So Nichols and Duncan Cameron go to Camp Hero. Remember, it is empty and abandoned. And he says, I want you to see if you know this place, if you recognize this place, because he's like, well, maybe maybe this is going to confirm for me whether or not these other guys who both said that they worked with me at Camp Hero, and I don't remember either of them, maybe it'll spur something on in Duncan's mind. And maybe because he's a psychic, he's going to be able to tell me something about it that I don't remember. So they get there, and sure as shit, Duncan does recognize Camp Hero, and they go through all of the various buildings, and Preston has Duncan tell him what each of these buildings were, what they were doing in them. He figures out, the entire layout of the place, exactly what each building was being used for when it was in operation. And I guess he had just a bunch of minute details about things. I don't know how he was able to confirm things if he didn't have the physical memories of it, but perhaps that came at a later point. So Duncan then begins to talk to Preston about his own research. Okay, so he's psychic. I guess he had knowledge of what Preston had actually been working on. And the more they talk, Duncan starts to divulge more stuff. And then suddenly, at some point, as they're walking through the base, Duncan goes into a trance-like state. And he just starts speaking. He just starts talking and giving Preston all of this information. And apparently it was very odd. Preston was really weirded out about the whole thing. And he takes him back to his lab, and they get into it deeper. And they begin to unlock memories that Preston had suppressed within him. So they do the same with Duncan. And because Duncan also had things that he couldn't remember. So they're working together, and they begin to piece together the truth of the Montauk Project. And after they started breaking through these barriers that they both had, Duncan remembers something, and it's pretty disturbing. He remembers that he had been programmed like a Manchurian candidate to come and kill Preston Nichols, but only after befriending him. And his murder was supposed to be so that Duncan could then destroy all of his work, and they could essentially silence anything that Preston Nichols had been doing and try to stop him from getting any further into the research that had been done on Project Montauk at Camp Hero. Psychic research, but there was a lot more going on other than that. So obviously that's a little disturbing, but I guess maybe Preston determined that once Duncan had this conscious memory that he was supposed to kill him, he wasn't going to. And spoiler alert, he didn't. They remained friends for quite some time.
I mean,
so hold on.
It's a fun story.
It is.
I find a lot of it to be
fanciful,
lacking credibility or any evidence.
Tell you what, why don't I play you this video of Preston? Let me just go forward just a little bit, because it was at this point that Preston and Duncan started talking publicly as they continued to work with each other. Duncan begins to talk about the Philadelphia experiment, which we are going to talk about at length. He and his brother Ed had been part of the crew on the USS Eldridge, and it wasn't just Duncan remembering that he had been part of this experiment. This is the point at which Preston Nichols begins to remember things as well. Not only Philadelphia experiment, but also the Montauk Project. And they were like, you know what? We got to talk to people about this. So in 1986, they get together and they did a panel for an organization called the U.S. Psychotronics Association. And this was a conference devoted to, psychic phenomenon. It was held in Chicago. And while they were there, they spoke to a large crowd of people. They talked about all of their suppressed and recovered memories and the things that they had begun to unlock with regard to Montauk and the Philadelphia experiment. And because their story was so interesting, despite the fact that they didn't have a whole lot of corroborating information, it began to be widely circulated. And, I want you to think about what it would take in 1986 for people to start getting a name for something like this. On the internet nowadays, you make a video, 3 million people see it tomorrow because, you know, you say some crazy stuff. But
geez, I wish I had 3 million people see my videos after I made them.
Nobody watches my video 3 million times either, so don't worry about that. But because their talk was so interesting, it began to spread around. A lot of people wanted to hear what they had to say. Obviously, last week we spoke about the fact that Preston ended up going on to write a book, and so they begin to make a name for themselves, and they end up getting connected with somebody else who also was involved in the Philadelphia experiment, and that man's name was Al Bielek. Now, let me go ahead and pull up this short interview with Preston Nichols. This is after they've all come to know each other. Hold on just a second.
I'm curious to see what he talks and sounds like. You know what? While you're pulling that video up, we should get a quick word from our sponsors.
Go ahead.
I was told to play them around the 40-ish minute mark. So let's do that real quick. First up, we got 2 of them. First up, some CB Distillery. Let me find my glasses here. Okay, what if your only resolution this year was to get better sleep? Just imagine how much more energy you'd have. You'd handle stress better. Pretty much all of your goals would be easier. You'd recognize a regime change when you see one, right? That's why the smart way to start 2026 is with CBD from CB Distillery. Over 90% of CBD customers, there are 2 million plus of them, say they sleep better with CBD. That's tough to beat. And when you sleep better, everything else feels better too. And CB Distillery has options for more than just sleep, solutions for stress relief, mood, and pain after exercise. You can shop by benefit, so it's easy to find what you're looking for. Let's say you threw your back out or something, you need to rub some CBD on it. They have a solution for that too. Everything from CB Distillery is premium quality, third-party tested, and free of artificial dyes or fillers. And they have over 2 million happy customers, as I said earlier, and 100% money-back guarantee. So if you're ready to start off the year right, go to cbdistillery.com and use the code BASELESS for 25% off. That's cbdistillery.com, promo code BASELESS. Specific product availability depends on individual state regulations.
Man, yeah, I don't have any CBD right now. That would have been perfect, but either way, it's all right. All right, so,
I do have one more ad.
Oh, sorry about that. That's why
and
it didn't work.
And then the video. Sorry about that. We got, who else is this? Lean. There we go. Fad diets over the years, juice cleanses, cabbage soup diet, raw food diet, etc. By the time the average person hits 60, they've lost and regained several hundred pounds. You have no idea how much damage gaining and losing weight could do. Doctors call it weight cycling. Half of Americans do it. It's when you lose 10 pounds or so, but then you put the pounds back on, plus a couple more. It's so tough on your body, and it probably leaves you really frustrated. The bottom line is most people need help losing weight, and here is a great way to do it. Non-prescription Lean was created by doctors. Lean is an oral supplement, not an injection, and the science is really quite impressive. The studied ingredients also target weight loss in 3 powerful ways. Lean helps maintain healthy blood sugar, it helps control appetite and cravings, and it helps burn fat by converting it into energy. Burning fat helps keep the weight off. If you want to lose meaningful weight at a healthy pace and keep it off, add Lean to your diet and exercise lifestyle. Get 20% off when you enter Baseless at takelean.com. That's code Baseless at takelean.com. All right, now let's try this. Oops, took me away. There we go.
So I need to add something to our Baseless Conspiracies master list. Somebody in the chat just said, please do Planet X. I've actually been seeing a lot about Planet X recently.
Have you?
So yeah, that's something that I've actually wanted to dive into, like, you know, just personally. But okay, so this is Preston Nichols. You can see they say real life 11 Preston Nichols describes Montauk.
In a parallel way, so that people can actually have parallel lifetimes going on.
Well, time is essentially like a real estate. In other words, as you and I can walk through real estate from point A to point B, all time coexists, and it's possible to go from point A to point B if you can find the path to go directly from. Some people believe it's taking the linear timeline, bending it, over next to each other and creating a wormhole or a punch through from time A to time B.
And so when you're existing you're at the same time, literally, like, you know, you can fold it over and wow, here I am. At the, what about creating alternate paths then? Are we doing that with our lives because of that ability for time to sort of warp or fold over on itself?
Some of us are doing multiple timelines if we have the capability of going from, let's say, today to 2 weeks ago and working the whole 2 weeks over again. What will happen is the first pass will become an alternate reality, since you cannot have a time paradox, which is where you and you exist, two of you at the same time. That cannot be.
They put ET on the
So
screen.
one of the passes, typically the first pass, will become an alternate reality, an alternate timeline.
Now, what did they do, though, with Al when they allowed him to grow up the same time he was already in the Navy?
Well, Al's story is a little bit different. They allowed Al to go through and have his whole life from 1916 to 1943. Actually, I think it's 1947. Then they reportedly had the capability of regressing Al back physically to a baby, and then sent him through a time portal and inserted him in another family, and he grew up all over again. There were two Al Bieliks. One is Edward Cameron and one is Al Bielek. And even if they meet, there's going to be no terrible things happening because of the fact that there was a step back in time means he is meant to coexist two places in one time. I did the same thing. At Montauk, I was working at BJ's. At the same time, I was working at AIL.
Whoa. Did you get two paychecks? Did you get to enjoy all that abundance? No. Oh, no. That's a shame.
I was actually working two timelines, one at BJ's and one at Montauk. In other words, I would be in Melville doing my regular...
Hold on.
I don't understand why they did that shit with ET. Was it because of the phone number? Like, they're like, call in.
I don't know, but that was really funny. But I'm assuming like he got paid an actual like W-2 paycheck. There's taxes and proof and stuff that he worked at BJ's.
Okay, so what he's saying, what he's talking about there is the same being in two separate timelines existing in the same space at the same time. So he was working at AIL. The other him was working at Montauk, because these were not only psychotronic, psychic experiments that were taking place, but there was also time travel and divergent timeline experiments that were taking place at Montauk as well.
So according to his theory, though, like he could technically run into himself somewhere, right?
Yes.
So
yes,
this is what I'm saying. Like if I was gonna totally make up a story about like the Montauk, like me having been at this Montauk base, you know, during this time frame, when people are gonna be like, "Yo, dude, I worked with you at that burger joint, BJ's." Like, what do you mean? I saw you there. You weren't working at Montauk. You were at BJ's. A possible way out of that is to be like, "Oh, well, yeah, I did work there too. I was in two places at once."
It was another me from another timeline.
How convenient.
Yeah.
I mean, he could be genuine, but like this sounds like totally made up bullshit to me so far. I don't find him to be credible. Well, we can finish it out. Let's see what else.
There isn't much left. There's like 30 seconds.
I want to hear what else.
8-hour day job. At the same time, I would be out at Montauk doing my job as well. Now, what would happen to my memories is memory is keyed in by where you are and what timeline you're on. As far as memory goes, the first pass through would become an alternate reality memory, although theoretically I could have called myself if I knew how to get through the switchboards and do it.
All right. So, so for Nichols, he had normal memories from 1973 to 1983 when he was working at AIL. But as he and Duncan Cameron started to converse and started to break through and have these recovered memories come up, he starts getting back memories of that time that he was working at Project Montauk. And he and Duncan Cameron both realize that the only way this would be possible is if Preston Nichols had been operating in two separate time tracks, let's say, because they're not necessarily two timelines. I mean, it is still the same world, but, you know, it's like if in Back to the Future, when Marty goes back just enough to see like himself almost kiss his mom, and he's like, gross, you know, don't do it. But he can't step in there and say something because he doesn't want to disrupt the timeline. But Preston Nichols and Duncan Cameron are essentially saying that that wouldn't have done anything. It's still, everything would have proceeded exactly as normal.
I love the time travel stuff. Like some movies about that. Some are my favorite. The concept of it. I don't know if I believe it exists, because I feel like if it did exist ever, like I guess maybe we probably wouldn't know, because we wouldn't know, because things would have changed. We would have no idea. It's because of the time travel. I mean, you never know. Never mind. Disregard that thought because that was stupid. But I do like the concept of time travel stuff, although I don't believe it. It's possible.
All right. So, so it was around this time, 1990, when Preston Nichols creates that antenna, and he goes to the roof of his laboratory and he somehow keys into some frequency, which allows him to recover all of those memories that he had lost. And it was that same year he gets laid off from AIL. He had been working there for like 20 years, and he ends up going essentially into investigating this stuff like full time. So let's talk about the time travel aspect of it and go back to the Philadelphia experiment. So the Philadelphia experiment was the sort of the culmination of research that was carried out by the U.S. Navy. They were developing stealth technology, and it began as an idea with Nikola Tesla at the University of Chicago in 1931. And when it started as a theory, it was the Invisibility Project. It's also known as Project Rainbow. These are real. You can find documents related to them. And the stated goal of the U.S. Navy was to simply make a ship that would be invisible to enemy radar. So in 1933, this is when Franklin Delano Roosevelt first came to office. And he was aware of Nikola Tesla because he had done work previously for the U.S. Navy during World War I. So he asks Tesla to come to Washington, D.C., and they start talking about, you know, his research and the direction that he's going. And Tesla tells him that he was working on invisibility tech. And so they invite Nikola Tesla in to become part of this initiative that was taking place at Princeton University. They wanted to create a research lab which would allow Tesla to develop technology in conjunction with the U.S. Navy. And hopefully this invisibility project would become a reality. And there was another scientist, another European scientist named von Neumann, who worked alongside Tesla on this tech. And there was also work that was done there by Albert Einstein. And the idea behind Tesla's work was to render ships invisible using electrical generators and creating something that he called an electromagnetic bottle around the ship. So they did a series of experiments, and in 1940, they were successful in taking a small unmanned ship and making it invisible in the Brooklyn Naval Yard. Obviously, everybody's very pleased with this, and they're like, okay, now we need to step it up, and we need to get this to work with a much larger ship, and it also has to have people on it, because otherwise, it's a real thing. This is a real thing, allegedly. And but the experiment, the operation, and the players, you know, all real. Sure. But I'm dramatizing as much as I can to make it interesting for the audience. All right. So in December of 1941, The United States has, of course, already entered World War II. They were having a lot of losses out at sea because the German U-boats were a huge problem. Like they were, able to stealthily hide themselves, and they were sinking U.S. ships. And they figure that if we can make our ships invisible, then it would be the perfect technology. The U-boats would no longer be a problem for us, and we would very quickly win the war. So the scientists at Princeton are under tremendous stress from the U.S. military. At this time, the commander of the USS Eldridge, he was a guy by the name of Oscar Schneider. He had been pretty successful working for the Germans. He was actually a U-boat captain himself, but he was captured by France and he was turned over to the U.S. Navy. So this is, pre-Operation Paperclip, but, still in the same vein. So they figure, hey, we want the preeminent U-boat captain to be running this ship because if anybody is going to help us evade the U-boats, it's going to be him. So in the spring of 1942, they put together Captain Schneider and a crew, and the electromagnetic bottle was then created around the USS Eldridge. But because it's a much larger ship than what they had done the experiment on previously, which was, say like a, couple of passenger little boat, it was far more powerful. And supposedly Tesla was very concerned about the amount of energy that they were going to be producing. Not only was this like the first time they had ever done this, but they really didn't have any concept of what the results were going to be, especially on the human body. They had a full crew, so things, if they went bad, they could be very, very bad. So the Navy, because they're worried about what's happening in the war, they're like, we don't care. We need to move forward. This has to work. And this is the only thing that's going to help us win the war. So this right here is speculation, but allegedly it said that Tesla sabotaged the equipment the night before the test. And so then the next day they...
is there motive to that?
Because he was worried that he was going to be responsible for killing all these people on the ship.
Okay.
So the next day they go ahead with the experiment, but because he sabotaged the electro generators, the experiment failed. The ship did not become invisible. And at that point, Tesla was able to leave the project. And Dr. John von Neumann, who was this other European scientist that was working alongside him, primarily using Tesla's research, he ends up taking over and becoming the lead on the project, which, of course, now could be even more problematic because he doesn't necessarily fully understand Tesla's work. He's just building upon something that he was sort of brought into in the midst of it. So by fall of that same year, you've got a ship now, the USS Eldridge, that was commissioned to be the first ship that would hopefully successfully be rendered invisible. And von Neumann, because of the failure of the first test, he re-engineered the electro-generating equipment, and they did a couple additional small tests on boats. Apparently, it was more successful than what they did before, but they still hadn't tested it on any people. So in July of 1943, they carry out another test on the Eldridge for the first time, and for 20 minutes, the ship is completely invisible. And
how many minutes?
20 minutes. 20 minutes, the ship was gone. It was invisible. And the problem was that the crew that was on the ship, they all got really sick. They were like, their brains were scrambled essentially from the electromagnetic radiation. A lot of them got physically ill. And once von Neumann saw the effect that it was having on the men, he came forward and he was like, I feel obligated now. I got to tell you that Tesla told me he was worried about this kind of thing happening. But the Navy, all they saw was that the ship was invisible for 20 minutes. And they're like, you know what? You've got 2 months, okay? And at the end of this period of time that we're going to give you, you need to perfect this. This needs to be ready to deploy immediately. and it's a hard deadline of August 12th of 1943. So on August 12th, 1943, they take the Eldridge out in the middle of Philadelphia Harbor, and they had 3 additional U.S. warships surrounding it. And once again, they had a full crew, and they turned it on, and the Eldridge became invisible. They could see like a greenish ozone type haze around it. But after that, suddenly there was a flash of light, flash of bright blue light, and then the ship was totally gone. It wasn't just that it was invisible. It was no longer there. It was no longer physically present in the harbor.
How do they know if they couldn't see it?
Well, because they took their boats out there. They were like looking for it. They were trying to touch it. All right. So about 4 hours later, the Eldridge returns. And they're like, yes, oh my God, finally you're back. So they take the boats out there, and this time it's way worse than the first bad experiment that they did. Terrible, terrible, horrible things happened to the crew. All of the equipment on board the ship was totally destroyed, and the crew itself was in various states of phasing in and out of reality. Some people were melted into the deck. People who weren't, like, you know, their bodies weren't scrambled, like their minds were scrambled. And then, you know, they were like, oh, this is bad. I don't know if we should be doing this. But they tried again a couple months later in October. This time they did it without a crew, and they did make the ship invisible. But again, when it reappeared, all of the equipment was totally damaged. So Project Rainbow officially came to an end, and then they went and they started a new project. They started to develop the hydrogen bomb, and and that's it. Now, this is where Al Bielek comes into the story. Because Al Bielek is another man who also was part of this experiment. He had mentioned him in that short talk. Okay, so Al Bielek is one form of another guy named Ed Cameron. Ed Cameron was the brother of Duncan Cameron. Duncan Cameron claims to have been involved in the Philadelphia experiment with his brother Ed. They were on the ship, and when they phased out, Ed Cameron disappeared. When the ship came back, and some people were dead, dying, crazy, scrambled up brains, melted into the deck, Ed Cameron was missing. All right. And what essentially happened to Ed Cameron is that he ended up falling through time. And he ended up living his life at the same time that as like he was growing up as a child. Now, the Ed story, I think I need to go into that on like a totally different show, just to specifically talk about what Ed experienced, because it's long, and we're not going to get out of here at midnight if I do that, because I got a couple of other people that I wanted to talk about.
So this is going to be this isn't the final.
Yeah. I just decided, like, spur of the moment, I'm going to have to do a whole separate show on Al Bielek, aka Ed Cameron.
Yeah, isn't that the guy who we just saw that video? He said Al Bielek was 2 people, right?
Yes, he did. Yeah. He was Al Bielek and he was Ed Cameron. They were the same person, but they were at different points in their life. And the reason there were 2 of them is because Al Bielek went back, and then he grew up, and then his younger self ended up going through time at the Philadelphia experiment and ended up falling back through time in the same way that he did.
Is there pictures of these 2 to make it like to compare?
Yeah, hold on. Let me find some. I can hang on. And Cameron
and also, why couldn't they use like just an empty boat to test the invisibility?
They did. They used the empty boat, and it was successful.
Oh, and then when they put the people on. Okay, I missed that part.
Yeah. So the point was that they needed to make it work as they needed to make it work with people on it. Otherwise, it was shit. I mean, why are you going to make an empty boat invisible?
I don't know if you got to hide it.
Well, I mean, if you're going to hide it, it's going to be hidden at the dock. But the
invisible dock, invisible boat dock. That's a great idea to store your ships, your special ships.
I guess maybe if you want to hide like where people are, might consider attacking. But
imagine if Pearl Harbor had invisible ships. If all the ships were invisible, they never would have gotten bombed. We never would have gotten into World War II, man.
I think that it's even a better idea to make sure that that nobody died on them. And of course, you want to make them. You want to make it useful while you're out in the fog of war. Okay, so let me share this with the audience. Okay, and we will share this tab instead. Okay. So, all right.
Can you send me this, by the way?
Sure. On the left is Ed Cameron. All right. And on the right is Al Bielek. So this is the date that, they were each born. And then 1916 was Cameron's birth date. 1943 was when Al Bielek was born.
But they're the same person, I thought.
They are the same person. But of course, one of them went through time. And
wouldn't they have the same birth date, though?
So that's why I want to talk about this on its own, because it's very complicated, the specifics of it. Okay. They have two different lives, two totally different lives. Oh, no. Yeah. Just let me just very quickly show you this. And I don't have Ed's life or Al Bielek's life prepared to talk about tonight. I need to put together notes and research it, because all I can tell you is just some surface level stuff here.
Okay. You have to bring pictures of earlobes for comparison. Just saying.
I can do that.
Okay.
Just looking at them right here, they look similar. Obviously, you've got many more years on Al Bielek here.
It's too early for me to make that judgment, especially the age difference.
I wouldn't expect you to.
Ears grow, the cartilage or whatever. Well, man, okay, well, that's exciting. We do have another episode then for next week.
Yes. All right, so now this next piece, I'm going to reference this article here from The Sun. So let me pull this up. Now, this article was published in 2021, okay? And let me share that, add that to the stage. All right, so this is a person who is not any of the people that we've spoken about yet, from New York, from Montauk, okay? And he came forward and he said that he was abducted between 1980 and 1981, and he was taken to the underground lab at Camp Hero. And while he was there, he was put through all of these different tests and experiments. This is a modern day image of Camp Hero. The as I said before, this is now owned by the New York State Park System. This is that radio tower, which is right there on the shore.
We should do a guard there.
That would be interesting. That would certainly be interesting. So I guess this guy was 54 in 2021. And he would have been between 12 and 13 at the time. He was from Montauk, and now he works at Camp Hero. I guess he's like working for the New York State Park System. He also alleges that his memories of his experience at Camp Hero, his abduction, the experiments, and all of that were suppressed, much as Duncan's and Preston Nichols' memories were suppressed. And they only came out in 2018 under hypnotic regression. So he said, we were riding around Montauk on bikes. We had a little BMX gang. This kid I'd seen around before. He was a bit of a loner. He talked me into riding my bike with him to the Montauk base. They get there. They end up making their way through the security gates, and two men in dark suits greet them. and the kids that he was with introduce him to these guys, and they say, hey, these guys are our friends, and there's all this cool stuff inside. You should probably go in there and check it out. So I don't know if these kids offered him up, much like kids will be groomed to bring other kids to traffickers. But, I mean, that's exactly what Epstein did. That's what we learned about in the Johnny Gosch case and the Franklin scandal case, Boys Town, all of that's exactly what they do. So he ends up going inside. There's like a tunnel that leads them in, and they get to a portion, and he ends up blacking out. He doesn't remember what happens next. He doesn't remember what happened, and only later does he remember coming back to. So he was hypnotized, and he starts recovering these memories, and he remembers the different areas inside the base, inside this underground bunker. He recalls being stripped, put onto a table, and having wires attached to his head and body, kind of similar to what Fiona Barnett had remembered happening to her. Also similar to that new account that came out of the recent Jeffrey Epstein files release, where that girl in
the drawings.
Well, that was Fiona Barnett, but
right.
in the Jeffrey Epstein files, there was a girl from the UK who said that her father had taken her to some very specific locations, and there was a party with some European elites that included Prince Andrew, Ghislaine Maxwell, Jeffrey Epstein, some other adult men, and they tortured her. They put like electrodes on her, and they shocked her, and they essentially tortured her in front of these people. So he doesn't know how many times he was there, but he actually does remember Preston Nichols from his time there at Camp Hero. He said that he and others were held in a concrete room underneath that radar tower that we saw. He said that he remembers something like 70 children in the room, everybody wearing like the same clothing, whether a uniform or something like that. And he assumes that he was like drugged or gassed, and he doesn't remember like coming or going from that room, only being there in that room. And he said they were using our energy and trying to figure out something that was going on with us. The group that I was with was all boys, and we were taken against our will. There's no telling exactly what we were involved in. I think they had machines that were manipulating time. It was either time or dimensions. It wasn't normal stuff that they were doing. It wasn't like they were testing us with drugs to see if we got tuberculosis or something like that. He also recalls being under hypnosis and with a group of boys, and they were handed a gun inside the bunker, and there were a row of human heads, and they commanded him to shoot and kill these people. And he says, I remember shooting all these people in the backs of the heads, but we never looked at their faces. I think that point of the test was to see if we had the capabilities to actually kill a living human being. Now, obviously, John, and I'm like fully aware that this man's recovered memories could all be due to his prior knowledge of many of the things that we've talked about, specifically Preston Nichols' accounts, Duncan and Ed Cameron's accounts. However, I mean, I know it's not something that we can prove, but as I've said in the past with stories such as this, I mean, we do know that these types of activities, this sort of MK Ultra, ritualistic, trauma-based mind control, essentially creating people with fragmented personalities and disassociated identities so that they can be used for a specific purpose. This is real. I mean, this definitely happened. So, I'm not going to make any value judgments about this guy or, what he's saying specifically. I will say that he's not come forward. He hasn't given his identity. He's not trying to make a name for himself. He's not trying to capitalize on this. He gave this interview anonymously. And, for some people that might make it more difficult to believe. But, I mean,
probably in that camp.
Yeah. But I mean, but I would imagine that if this person identified themselves and they started doing the podcast circuit, you'd probably say, well, he just wants to make a name for himself. He just wants to, get that sweet AdSense revenue.
Maybe. I mean, it depends what his story is,
Yeah.
Like, I don't knock anybody for wanting to do a podcast. Like,
Sure. Well, I'm just playing devil's advocate here. My point is that, like, there's really no winning situation like this. Something terrible.
Not evidence. No.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. Something terrible happens to you. You feel compelled to talk about it. You have no way to prove it. You subject yourself to ridicule. Okay. Or scorn or, disbelief, right?
From some people will eat this shit up though. Like it's a mix of both.
It is. But, it depends on which one you're going to respond to more, right?
But that's with anything too. Like I can put out stuff and like show like actual facts for something and still get ridiculed. Like people are just dicks, man.
Yeah.
It's just like
it's the truth. All right. So going into his experience a little more, he is a father of 3. And he insisted that it still gives him nightmares. He said the people who were in control of that experiment were horrible people, horrible creatures. They did very bad things to us out there. We were just kids. They had no right to experiment on us. It's a very evil thing. And these tests have been rumored to have taken place at Camp Hero in the form of the Montauk Project since the early 1980s. So that would have been prior to Preston Nichols coming out and starting to talk about it, but it would have been concurrent with his attempts to identify what had been going on at the base. But all of the rumors around the sort of, mind control programming that we've talked about, weather, time manipulation, teleportation, psychic driving and psychic movement of physical objects. And we can, look at specific experiments that have been revealed and, we can trace it back to some specific people. So, a lot of the people that came over, a lot of the German scientists that came over in Project Paperclip, or Operation Paperclip, excuse me, they went into a bunch of different scientific disciplines, but there was a fair number of them that ended up going into the MK Ultra program. And they were already doing some, heinous experiments with people during that time. And it's unfortunately just one of those things that we can't specifically prove. There's no way to do it. Now I have, obviously next week we'll talk about Ed Cameron and Al Bielek. There is another person who came forward in 1999, and he called himself Professor Fate, and his story originates in a series of emails that were sent to an individual. Do you remember John Teeter?
I don't.
Okay,
why is
John,
this sound familiar?
Because we did a Baseless Conspiracies about him. John Teeter was allegedly
Time traveler guy.
A time traveler. Yes.
That's right. Yep.
And he had schematics for his time control device. He started posting online, and there was like a period of time where, yes, there we go. Period of time where he was active, and he had come from an alternate future where, things were different, and he traveled back in time to get some part for his time travel device. And the point was that, he was supposed to go back and then fix things for people in the future. And after a period of time, John Teeter disappeared. Kind of like John Teeter, this guy, Professor Fate, had a series of email conversations, which seemed to discuss his timeline and the changes that had happened where he came from. And he allegedly came back and had a number of conversations with people during this timeline of how his future had been different. The only reason I bring this up is because it kind of dovetails with what Preston Nichols was talking about, the idea of these concurrent but converging timelines. And I think I'll probably wait to talk about that till next week as well, just given the amount of stuff that's going to be included in it.
All right.
But I love this John Teeter stuff because
this was an interesting one.
This was really interesting.
The schematics, like who does schematics anymore?
Well, and I mean the physical device, he had a real picture of this supposed time travel unit too. I mean, that's pretty cool. I mean, that's generally not something that you're going to see.
It adds a layer of credibility. I'll give it that. I like pictures. Cool, man. Well, I am excited to talk about this, get to the conclusion of it, hopefully next week.
Yes.
Watch you turn it into another episode.
Joe, yes. John Teeter did talk to Art Bell. Yeah. Whoa, Jeremy from the Quartering collapsed during a live stream tonight? That's crazy.
What?
We should see if we can find a clip of that. That's awful. I can't imagine. That dude works a lot, but he's also got people that work for him. So
yeah.
I don't know. I don't know what else he's doing. I guess he's got like a company, a coffee company or something.
Let's see if I can find a video. Might be difficult.
Maybe he's sick. I don't know.
Quartering exposes the collapse of the New World Order. I'm not seeing
too much estrogen.
If anybody's got a video of that or a link, let me know. Pass it along because I'm not seeing anything.
If it's out there, Lisa can find it. Lisa, can you go look for your Kiwi Farms threads? See, because I guarantee you it's probably on Kiwi Farms.
What is that?
Kiwi Farms is a website where they basically just like obsess about people on the internet. And God, I've never looked at Kiwi Farms because I don't want to know if we're on there. But they have a habit of like going after people. Maybe it's too much.
Definitely on there then.
I don't know.
A lot of people.
Salty Cracker said he has health issues. That wouldn't surprise me. I mean, he's a bigger dude. He's talked about his being out of shape before.
Okay, well, while you guys are looking for that, I'm gonna go through the boosts and then the rants. Get them pulled up here. And actually, before we do that, I'm going to play our soft disclosure ad while I get it all pulled up. So even though I shaved my beard and mustache off, I still put the beard oil on. Skin feels fantastic right now.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Love it.
Keeps you very soft.
I'm going to play soft disclosure. BRB.
Yeah. Get you some of that beard oil.
Now that I'm alone, got the close up. Do you see how awesome my beard looks right now?
I use the beard oil every single day. First thing.
Comes out feeling all silky smooth.
I take the dropper and I manually apply the oil directly
hair.
to my mustache.
Nice and, oh man, I love it.
And then I do drops all throughout the hair and then I just rub it all in. And then I top it off with the tallow stick on the face.
Dude, I feel like I have to grow a beard just to try this beard oil. It sounds
Do it, Jay.
amazing.
It's all from softdisclosure.com, and the best part about it is you'll be supporting Badlands Media, Annie from Willow and Farms, and basically 3 of Annie's neighbors. So that's 5 total American companies that you'd be supporting with one purchase.
I have been using the Soft Disclosure scentless beard oil every day after the shower. It looks unkempt, but it feels silky smooth. I want to look a little wild and unapproachable. But for the woman I trust, she'll be like, oh, it's actually kind of soft. He is approachable after all. Otherwise, stay away. And Soft Disclosure will help you too with that if that's the very specific vibe you're going for.
That is very specific, yes. You guys are supporting American businesses when you do that. It's absolutely incredible, and you get a great, great product.
It is a great product. Beard oil, deodorant, tallow bar, the lotion. It's all fantastic. Check it out. Softdisclosure.com. Did you find anything?
No. And it looks like people in the chat are saying he's got some type of an upper respiratory infection. So
that is rough.
Yeah. I mean, hopefully he takes care of himself. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Whether you watch the Quartering or not, obviously, we don't wish any ill health on anybody.
Unless you're president of Venezuela. But yes, praying for you, Quartering. Keith O'Higgins. Oh, actually, boost first. We have 1027 JS for $20. Thanks for everything. Thank you, Joe. Fellow North Dakota, appreciate you. Hope you're staying warm. Keith O'Higgins, happy Golden New Year, guys. I have Venezuelan friends, and I just sent them get well soon cards for the regime reassignment surgery. Love that. You're not allowed to laugh, though, if you don't think it's a regime change. Postal for Hope. It's not okay. We need to stay out of other countries. We need to remove the criminals running this country. Amen. Amen.
Can I give a little background on this? All right. So when President Trump came into office, he began at the periphery. Okay. Mm-hmm. Started working his way in on the deep state here in the government in the United States. Okay. Dismantling the criminal cartel in Venezuela that is, in my opinion, operated and largely funding black ops for the Central Intelligence Agency and the global criminal cabal, I think is on the periphery of moving in to those deep state bad actors that comprise our own government and our own federal bureaucracy. Everything that I've seen President Trump do has been a series of successive operations that tighten the stranglehold around the people that ultimately I know each and every one of you want to see go down for the things that they've done. So what's happening in Venezuela, in my opinion, is directly connected to what we are trying to solve here in the United States of America. And I think that a lot of times people look at these disparate events and see them as separate. I see it all as the same web. Okay. I mean, we are fighting against the global criminal cabal that is comprised of different groups that are operating collectively to try to destroy the United States of America, subjugate the peoples of the world, and ensure their own survival and power for generations to come. In order to take them out, you want to remove all of the back end ways they have to get out of the accountability. And by tightening that circle, it's like tightening the noose around the neck of a man who is standing on the platform in the middle of the town square. The looser that noose is, the more likely it is he's going to slip out and he's going to run behind the saloon, and then you're never going to see him again. But this way, we make it more and more difficult for them to have any other way out. And ultimately, it's going to continue to tighten that noose until it gets directly around the neck of, insert deep state actor here that you want to see brought to justice. That's my opinion. That's how I see it playing out.
Yeah. The Venice, I agree with largely with what you said. Trump did kind of prove that it doesn't matter who you are or where you are, we can get to you, which is kind of badass. That's some awesome power projection. The Venezuela thing, I do think it's more like having to do with our national security strategy. There's an article I read this morning on my show, and I put it in the chat earlier. I think it's about the critical minerals down there that China was trying to put a chokehold on. Mm-hmm. I think it was more so to do with the Iran and Hezbollah and their drone manufacturing down there.
Certainly.
I think Russia had a bunch of troops down there. Trump said in his national security strategy, we are going to the Western Hemisphere.
Agreed.
And our region of responsibility. That's what we're going to take care of.
Yep.
I think this was a way of kind of kicking out some of those other global entities from our region.
Agreed.
Which is why I think Maduro was okay with it. I think it was a negotiated X of sorts. He's probably going to end up in Russia or Qatar or somewhere to live out the rest of his days. I think we're going to end up seeing the same thing with us and Ukraine. I think we're going to be out of there. And Russia, Ukraine to Russia is Venezuela to us in a lot of ways in terms of globalist entities and whatnot. It's a proxy state. It's a cutout.
Yep, 100%.
And 100%. I still don't think. But never mind. I'm not.
Well, I used that exact same analogy earlier today because that's exactly how I see it. Russia is concerned with Ukraine because it's at their back door. Okay, essentially, Mexico is the next closest nation that is at our back door that has a problem with the global cartel running drugs and taking control of the government. So, Venezuela, Colombia, Mexico, successively getting closer to our own border, covering up our hemisphere and ensuring that essentially we're going to be setting the agenda. Russia will be able to do the exact same thing over there. To whatever degree, China is going to be doing the exact same thing in their portion as well. And, I mean, what's good for Venezuela is good for the United States of America. Venezuela and the United States have a intrinsically connected oil production industry. Venezuela produces deep, heavy crude. The United States has the oil refineries that were built specifically to process it. We don't have that kind of oil here. And in order to get oil to process there, we've got to bring it from way farther around the world. So we will go ahead and process Venezuela's oil. A lot of people don't realize this, but even when Hugo Chavez was in power and he nationalized the oil companies there, we were still processing that oil in, the Gulf of America, okay, like in Louisiana and I believe Alabama as well. And then at a certain point when sanctions were put in, we stopped that, and it made it a lot more difficult for them, but it also made it more difficult for us. So the economic interdependence that you see President Trump, engaging in this global capitalistic diplomacy all around the world, we're now going to be in that position to do that with Venezuela as well. It will, of course, financially help the United States of America, but even more significantly, it's going to help the people of Venezuela as well. Not only for the oil, but also for those minerals and for the contracts that we're going to be for sure getting. And I think that it will create a more stable and economically interdependent series of nations here in our hemisphere. And it is exactly what was prescribed in that national security strategy.
Do you? I mean, I don't think the oil is. I don't think that's like just a story we're being told. I don't think it's about the oil. I think we have the largest actual oil reserves here, and we could tap that any kind we want, anytime we want. I think it's less about the oil. I think they're only producing like, 700,000 barrels? Is it a day or whatever?
Well,
which is like significantly under what they used to when they're at their peak. And we have so much infrastructure rebuilding to do down there to even get it to its peak. I don't think it's about that.
I don't think it's exclusively about it. I think that it's a small part of it. But I mean, natural resources, certainly. The world runs on oil. Okay. And, again, the problem that we have with those refineries is that we in America don't produce the type of oil that must be refined in those facilities. We didn't build them here because the EPA had a stranglehold on regulations and essentially forbade companies from building the types of refineries that would be necessary to produce our oil. So we had these, we were producing that type of oil previously, and those particular wells went dry. And in order to keep them going and continue to hire people and, keep them working, we got to bring it from someplace. So I think that it's a portion of it, but I don't think it's the answer. I mean, everybody wants to say it's just, not everybody, but a lot of people are like, oh, it's just the oil. Trump just wants the oil. I think Iraq was totally about the oil. I think that
was.
Yeah, that was pretty obvious. Oil is just a small part of it. There's a lot more. I think that more than anything else, it's about peace in the region. It's about, the creation of the Trump world order and the subjugation of the new world order. The era of nations, the golden age that Trump is trying to create, which is leaps and bounds away from this sort of global hegemony that was run by transnational organizations without borders, and the sort of mongrelization of the people of the world.
Fair enough. I won't. I agree largely. I don't disagree, but I don't think it's worth. We'll save it for only.
I have one more comment on the oil. The reason they're not pumping as much oil as they could be is because they don't have any way to process it. So, like, what the hell are they going to do with it? They're basically at their storage capacity. And we also shut down their ships and stole them.
We've sanctioned the shit out of them. But the article I read earlier today, it was talking. It made some good points. Like, if it would have been about the oil, they would have done this in 2019. This was more so about where we're at now with the critical minerals and where things are going with the AI and computing power and everything.
I would agree that is more important, especially like precious metals and the rare earth elements.
Yeah. Namster, there seems to be so much tunnel vision. I trust Trump had reasons we're not told for extracting them. Yeah, for sure. I mean, I don't think anybody argues that the story we're being told by everybody, like the mainstream media, it's the oil and it's because he trafficked drugs. That's not what's actually going on here. I don't think anybody believes that.
I mean, it's an excellent narrative deployment.
Yeah, easily sold to the normies. People buy into that shit. But yeah, more rants here. Hold on. We got Angie K. This is a military assists the police arresting a bad guy. This VP is still in charge, so can't be a regime change with the same regime in place. Not if it's a dictatorship, which we're told that it was. Trump called it the Maduro regime. So did Rubio. I don't know why everybody's so stuck on it. Your unwillingness to budge on it not being a regime change makes me that much more unwilling to budge from it being a regime change. So the ball's in your court.
I also know that you're not going to budge from your position either. So, we have taken opposing positions, which are largely ceremonial at this point. It really doesn't matter.
We're going to fight about it because we need the friction. We need to get used to this feeling of being in disagreement for when the real battles come. We're preparing you for the time travel battles that are upon us. Sleep State, if you're being rescued by the U.S. military, would you bring your wife?
I mean, if she was a Black Widow harpy that was forcing you to do terrible things and you really just want to get rid of her, I think that you would. I think
if she's an actual handler and she was the connection to whatever bad elements were controlling Maduro, maybe it was just him. I'm not saying he's a good guy. I don't know. But you would obviously bring him with or bring her with and get her there so that you could interrogate her.
Absolutely. I agree. Yeah.
Anyway. Gizmo's mom, Data 12 at Gizmo's mom says, did anyone find out the names of the person back in Eastern US who asked Carrie Lake to pause for 2 years? Messenger mentioned cartel in 50 states and Carrie has no friends. Yeah, it's the guy that used to be the chair of that company with Tyler Bauer.
Yeah, that tape came out a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
I mean, I had never heard of him before that, and I really haven't heard of him since. But he is a power player in Arizona. And I see people mentioning
Republican Party there. Jeff DeWitt.
There you go. Jeff DeWitt. Yeah. And I see people mentioning election integrity stuff, election security. I definitely think that is a big part of it as well. And I mean, I think President Trump going ham on the stolen election over the weekend, I think that's, again, a signal to it.
Yeah. It's coming. Has to come. Better come.
Absolutely. It must.
Where am I? Sorry, I got to find the rant skin. I lost him. But yeah, the Jeff DeWitt, he was on the board of that company that Tyler Bauer was on. And so was Erica Kirk's mom, Franz V. Keith O'Higgins, homeless people are free range, bait for the aliens, penetration testing. You can outlaw hobo fights, but not the early morning probing. I like that. Real funny.
So has anybody asked you if you thought Mark Carney could be arrested next? Because they've been pretty open about Canada allowing the transfer of like precursors and drugs. I mean, they've talked about it to a lesser degree, but certainly it's been a topic of conversation. If I was Mark Carney, I might be a little nervous, to be perfectly honest with you.
Yeah, I don't know. I still don't want to get into the habit of just like going and taking over, of not regime changing other countries by taking their leader out of there and replacing them with somebody we approve.
I think that it would be easier to economically strangle Canada. And I'm sorry for any Canadians in the audience, but I mean, I saw you guys talking about this. I saw you guys talking about this in the chat earlier, but Alberta, I mean, like there's like a real possibility that they could secede from Canada.
That's what Burning Bright says.
I've heard that prior to him mentioning
Canadian news.
Yeah, I've definitely heard rumblings of this for a while, and they truly are like the economic engine of Canada. I mean, like that's where the oil's at. That's where people there have a contentious relationship with Ottawa, and there's a lot of restrictions that they've tried to do to the people there that have been a lot less successful than they were in other parts of the country. So I think that it would probably, if the United States was to support the secession of that province, that would be more powerful than just going in and arresting Mark Carney. And Mark Carney has only just recently become the prime minister, right? I mean, who would you? I mean, it makes more sense to go after Justin Trudeau.
Oh, for sure. And Katy Perry, get them both. Get both of them too while we're at it. If Canada or Alberta does, cede from Canada, whatever, do we invite them to be the 51st state?
I don't think so. I don't think that we need to have a 51st state. I think it's a dangerous precedent to set. I think that they would be successful enough on their own. We would be their number one trading partner. And, we would support their independence and their national sovereignty. That's a bigger kick in the nuts to Canada. And it makes it more difficult for world powers to, have anything to say about it. I mean, like, if we're like, sure, we'll absorb Alberta, we'll make them the 51st state, then there would be a huge global outcry about it. They would have, all of their attack dogs out. But if we just say, hey, we're willing to support our brothers and sisters in liberty, and we're going to recognize them, just like Israel recognized Somaliland, and immediately we get a base, we set it up, and we offer some type of security arrangement where they provide us with, I don't know, natural resources, and we go ahead and have a base there, and we perhaps train their people, make them the ultimate fighting machines in the north.
We can make them a territory, give them a seat at Congress, but not let them actually vote on anything.
That would be another way to go about it. Yeah.
No, I don't know. I mean, I know a couple Canadians, and they're pretty cool people.
Yeah,
I feel like you got to earn that right. Like, if they wanted to actually be a state, which I think would be based, and I would agree with you guys wanting to be a state.
Yeah.
I'd be okay with it long term once we see what's in it for us. Like, how is this going to financially benefit the United States?
Yeah. So loud and joyful, we've already talked about that, but just because we're not talking about it right now doesn't mean that we haven't already considered it. And talking about the stolen election, they say, you guys, why aren't those guys in jail? You're still falling for it all. I believe that is happening right now, and that what you are hoping will happen is going to happen. But I also think that there is a tremendous amount of pre-planning and militaristic timing related to the revelations surrounding all of this, because it has to be done in such a way that the entirety of the United States understands what was done and why things need to change and why it's so important that people end up going to jail. Again, I'll go back to a statement made early in the evening related to the events in Venezuela. I think that the stolen election of 2020 certainly dovetails and ties into that story in the way that many of these other things do.
In Venezuela?
Yes. In Venezuela. But I mean, not like, necessarily like the Venezuelan government as it exists right now, but it's undeniable that Smartmatic began down in Venezuela. It's undeniable that the CIA has been in operation down there during that entire time with the Cartel de Sols. It's undeniable that the CIA has had a hand in stealing elections, not only here, but in other parts of the world. It's also undeniable that Smartmatic executives have been indicted here in the United States for their operations stealing elections in other parts of the world. So just because I'm not talking about it all the time doesn't mean that I don't know that has an impact and connects to the stories that we're talking about. Again, this is one big story with a bunch of different chapters. It's not a bunch of separate, disconnected events that have taken place.
Yeah, I agree with what you said there. I've gone down the Venezuela voting machine thing, and obviously I know the Smartmatic connection and all that stuff. I don't think that's what this specific regime change operation was about. I feel like the election stuff with Venezuela specifically, especially considering who's been pushing it so heavily the last couple months, I feel like it's a red herring or it's some sort of op. And plus, I feel like Trump has the evidence of election fraud. He doesn't need to go and get Maduro specifically in order to prove it. You know what I mean?
No, I don't think so either. But I mean, I don't think that it hurts. And I agree with you that there is the stench of an op on this stuff. But the best ops are ops that are built on a foundation of truth, and then they can be twisted in some way to perhaps alleviate blame or exonerate certain people who are instrumental in having produce them from the start. So, I mean, I'm coming from the position that the software and the hardware that underpin our stolen and fraudulent election system here in the United States definitely connects to the beginnings of that, the software and the hardware, all that stuff.
Yep.
So it's undeniable that there would be a connection dating back to Venezuela. There are Venezuelans that are actually under indictment from Smartmatic right now here in the United States. But I don't think that necessarily means that the people who are talking the loudest about it are necessarily giving us, the entire truth, or that, they even understand what it is.
I think it's just kind of silly. Like those people are saying, this is their claim, that Maduro, through the Dominion voting machines or Smartmatic or whatever, have pretty much controlled elections in 72 countries for the last 20 years.
Yeah, don't believe that at all.
Yet somehow all of these countries called him illegitimate. Like, make that make sense, and are okay with the whole regime change thing. By the way, good to see Quite Frankly in the chat.
What's up, Frank?
How you doing? We should have him join us one of these episodes.
That would be great. Frank, let me know if you want to join us on a Baseless Conspiracies. You can text.
Bring your own conspiracy, bro.
Oh, dude, that would be so sweet.
I guess bring in a conspiracy.
Yes, yeah. Have Frank on, have him do a conspiracy for both of us. I would love that.
That'd be cool. We should make that a thing. Like every now and then, like we have a guest on to bring us a conspiracy.
I would totally go for that. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Guys, if you have suggestions for people we should have on to do that, let us know. Let's see what else we got. Keith O'Higgins says, I heard 2 sailors on the Eldridge merged on the poop deck the night before the experiment. Oh, that's good.
I'm not sure if that's a Philadelphia experiment joke or a Navy joke.
I like what you did there. Could go either way, both ways. Ramble on 365. Great show, guys. Thank you. Did I miss one? I don't think so. A Nevada runner with a thumbs up. Appreciate you. And then ZBM for $1. I could have sworn that the U.S. actually has crude oil that we're not drilling for. Am I wrong? Love this show, guys. I feel like we have it if we want it.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's just a matter of getting to it. And when I'm talking about the easily accessible raw material that needs to be processed, I'm talking about stuff that's already being drilled or, is in the midst of being drilled, or, we're getting it from Canada or whatever. Like tar sands oil coming from Alberta is not the right kind of oil to process down at those particular refineries down there, but perhaps, it's someplace else. So we've got all that oil in Anwar. I'm not clear on exactly what type of oil that is. And I don't know if we know 100% either, because we haven't actually drilled it yet. I mean, I think perhaps it would all be theoretical.
Bruno Farbo says, one of the things is we built rigs specifically to refine the Venezuelan oil. And then there was a falling out, and they want to use the rigs before they are unusable.
Yeah, that's what I was referring to before. Yeah, because, I mean, the rigs that I'm talking about, or the refineries that I'm talking about, because I think the rig is actually like, the method by which they get it out of the ground. Those refineries were built in conjunction with the development of the oil industry in Venezuela so that it could be processed here. It was a sort of mutually assured destruction, a relationship that was necessary because our companies put the money into the development of the drilling infrastructure in Venezuela, and then we built the capacity for refinement here in the United States, which required the transit of that oil from Venezuela up here, and everybody got along to a degree until we didn't.
Kahuna 65. The U.S. has limited heavy oil. Most U.S. oil is medium viscosity. I like that word, viscosity.
Yes.
The refineries in Texas and Louisiana are for the heavy crude from Canada and Venezuela.
There we go. Okay, so it is the same kind of oil as in Canada. Okay, but yes.
Yeah.
Oh, but you know what? And the pipeline that Joe Biden shut down. I mean,
Keystone?
that would have, Keystone Access Pipeline, that would have brought that oil from Canada and ensured those refineries would have, essentially unlimited raw material to process. And they are bringing that back, aren't they? I mean,
yeah, Trump approved that.
Okay, but I didn't know if they had actually began construction or not.
I thought the pipeline was like damn near complete.
Huh. I don't know. I honestly haven't looked into it in so long. And I would imagine now that Chevron deference has been overturned and the EPA has been neutered to a degree, the regulations that were holding back on the building of new refinement facilities, that's, hopefully we would begin producing, more capacity for the
It looks like the Keystone Pipeline extension is not complete. The XL, the original Keystone Pipeline, operates fully from Alberta to Texas refineries, transporting around 550,000 to 650,000 barrels per day. The proposed shorter route adding capacity remains unbuilt after permit revocation, but despite talks of President Trump revival in 2025, I thought he did revive it.
I mean, I know that the order was given, but that was the thing. I just didn't know what the actual construction was. Rio Dragon says that Alaska's crude is refined in Utah, where they are at.
What the heck?
So yeah, like I said, I'm not real clear other than what I've been saying about Venezuela's specific type of oil. I don't know what type of oil is coming out of Alberta, but thank you very much for informing me.
Maple syrup mostly, but yeah, man, that's all I got.
I think we're good. Great show tonight. I definitely had a good time. Yeah,
it's fun. I like when we disagree early, and then by the end of it, everybody's friends again in the chat. Anyway, that's what I love about it. But yeah, thanks everybody. Should have some exciting announcements related to some Badlands programming coming up here in the near future. Got a new host we're bringing into the mix, which I think will be very, very good. We can't talk about it yet.
Can't talk about it yet. I think that this is going to be a bombshell for the viewers at home, and certainly it will be an honor for us here at Badlands.
You've already said too much. How dare you? How dare you? But no, we'll be fine. Yeah, we'll get that announcement soon. Hopefully in the next week or so. And yeah, with that, I think, man, I hope you had fun. I did. You'll be back tomorrow on your show at 5 p.m. Eastern?
5 p.m. Eastern, that's correct.
And I'll be back on the Daily Herold at 1 p.m. Eastern. So if you like talking shit and disagree with me, come watch, and we'll talk live. That's pretty much what I do most of the show as I'm going through news stories. So come hang out. It's fun. Zach listened today, and he knows exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
It's a healthy disagreement. Anyway, thanks everybody. Hit that thumbs up, and we will see you next time we see you.
Peace.
Thank you.